When Tulasi Devi stopped speaking, Lord Brahma suddenly appeared there. After Shankachuta and Tulsi offered him their respects, Lord Brahma said,
"O Shankachuta, why are you wasting your time in such empty talks with Tulsi? Marry her now by the Gandharva rite. As you are a gem among males, she is a gem among females. When a clever couple marry, the union is very happy. And who would abandon happiness when it is at hand? Anyone who would do so is worse than a beast. And you, Tulsi, why are you testing this noble and qualified person who can subdue both the gods and the demons? Marry Shankachuta, just as Lakshmi is married to Narayan, Radhika to Krishna, my Savitri to me, Shachi to Indra, and Aditi to Kashyapa. Stay with the handsome Shankachuta for a long time, and, as you like, wander with him to various places. When Shankachuta leaves his body, you will return to Goloka and get Krishna as your husband."
Lord Brahma then blessed them and returned to his own abode. Shankachuta then married Tulsi by the Gandharva rite. Glorifying the marriage, the demigods sounded their drums and showered flowers on them from the sky. Sometimes the newly married couple would go to a flower grove, and at other times to a river bank. There they would sleep on flower beds smeared with sandal paste and enjoy marital pleasures. Tulsi easily stole the heart of her husband, and Shankachuta also attracted Tulsi's heart. After Tulsi garlanded her husband with parijata flowers, which prevent disease and old age, she placed a precious jeweled ring on his finger and offered him rare, beautiful gems. Bowing down to his feet with devotion, she repeatedly said, "I am at your service." Shankachuta smiled. He then presented Tulsi with clothes he had obtained from Lord Varuna's house. He also gave her a precious necklace of jewels, an armlet he had gotten from Svaha, or Agni's wife, armlets from Chaya, the sun god's wife, earrings from Rohini, the moon god's wife, finger rings from Rati, Cupid's wife, conch ornaments from Vishvakarma, as well as excellent bedding adorned with pearls and jewels. After further adorning her, he placed her feet on his chest and said, "I am your servant." They left the hermitage and began to travel to various places. They went to different mountains, flower gardens, caves, beaches, riversides, and forests. Wherever they went, they enjoyed each other's company with great satisfaction, never tiring of one another. Shankachuta then brought Tulsi to his own kingdom, and there they continued to delight in each other's company. Shankachuta enjoyed his kingdom for 1 manvantara, or 4,320,000 years, and during that period gained control over all the devas, danavas, gandharvas, kinnaras, and rakshasas. He dispossessed the gods of their realms and privileges, deprived them of their rights with respect to worship and offerings, and seized their weapons and ornaments. Consequently, they wandered about the universe like helpless beggars. Finally, they united in a group and went to Lord Brahma's assembly. Sobbing, they related the whole story of how Shankachuta had oppressed them. Lord Brahma took them to Lord Shiva's realm and related to Shiva the details of the case. Lord Shiva then took them all to the highest place, Vaikuntha, where there is neither old age nor death. As they approached the first gate, They saw the watchmen guarding the gate and sitting on jeweled seats. The watchmen had beautiful dark blue bodies and looked effulgent. They had smiles on their faces, lotus-like eyes, and 4 arms, each hand holding a conch, mace, disc, and lotus. They wore yellow garments, were decorated with jeweled ornaments, and were garlanded with forest flowers. Lord Brahma asked them for admittance, and they nodded their approval. Then, after passing through 16 gates, the group finally arrived before Lord Narayan. The assembly hall was filled with saints and 4-armed attendants who resembled Narayan and were wearing Kostubha jewels. The assembly hall was so brilliant with rays of light that it appeared as though the moon had just arisen. By Lord Narayan's mercy, there were diamonds, gems, and necklaces of jewels placed in various areas. In some spots, there were rows of pearls that shed their splendor and brilliance, and in other spots, there were mirrors arranged in a circle. In certain areas, there were jewels called padmaragas, which were artistically arranged to appear like lotuses spreading their radiant beauty everywhere. There were rows of steps made of Syamantaka jewels. Throughout the hall were wonderful pillars built of Indranila jewels. There were sandal leaves strung high from pillar to pillar. There were also golden jars full of water. All around were parijata flower garlands, sweet-scented sandal trees, and saffron and musk. The whole atmosphere was permeated with sweet fragrances. The Vidyadharas were dancing in one area. The assembly hall measured 8,000 miles in circumference. All over, numerous servants were engaged in various services. Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and other demigods saw Lord Hari or Narayan sitting in the center on a precious jeweled throne. He looked like the moon surrounded by many stars. He was wearing a crown on his head, earrings, a wildflower garland round his neck, and sandal paste on his body. Holding a lotus in his hand, he was smiling, watching the dancers and listening to the music. He looked very tranquil. Lakshmi was gently holding his feet, and he was chewing the sweet-scented betel nut she had given him. Ganga was fanning him devotedly with a white chamara, and others were singing hymns to him with their heads lowered in devotion. Lord Brahma and the other gods offered their obeisances to Lord Vishnu. As they did, their hairs stood on end, tears flowed from their eyes, and their voices were choked with emotion. Then Lord Brahma, his hands clasped and his head bowed, informed the Lord about Shankachuda's doings. Lord Hari smiled and said, "O Lotus-born, I know all about Shankachuda. In his previous birth, he was my great devotee, a very energetic cowherd boy in Goloka. I will tell you something about him which is quite sanctifying. His name was Sudama, and he was my chief attendant. He is now a Danava because in Goloka, Radha pronounced a terrible curse on him. Here is how it happened. One day I left Radha's company and went to the Ras dance area with the gopi named Viraja. Radha soon heard from one of her maidservants that I had flirted with Viraja. Blinded with fury, she hastened there with her attendants to see if this were true. Seeing that it was, Radha immediately converted Viraja into a river. I myself disappeared, so Radha rushed home angrily with her attendants. Later, when I was with Sudama and she saw me, Radha rebuked me very much. However, I remained silent. But Sudama could not tolerate this, so he rebuked Radha in my very presence. This was quite intolerable to her dignity. Her eyes became red with anger, and she immediately ordered thousands of her attendants to drive him away. Sudama then trembled with fear. As Radha's attendants tried to drive him away, he resisted and repeated his reproaches against her. When she heard them, she cursed him, saying, "May you be born in the womb of a Danavi, or demon woman." Sudama bowed down to me and, crying, began to leave. But Radha, who is quite merciful, began to melt. Weeping, she tried repeatedly to stop him from leaving. "Wait," she called, "wait, where are you going? You don't have to go, please come back." She became distressed, and her attendants and the cowherd boys began to weep. I then explained to them, "In about half a moment, Sudama will return, having fulfilled the conditions of the curse. Of course, a half moment here is equal to about 1 manvantara, or 4,320,000 years on earth." I then called to Sudama, "O Sudama, when the curse expires, please come back here." O demigods, that expert mystic and devotee Shankachuta will return to Goloka. Therefore, O gods, take my trident and go quickly to India. Lord Shiva will kill the Danava with the trident. The demon is wearing my auspicious amulet around his neck. It is called the Conqueror of the World. As long as he keeps wearing it, no one can kill him. So I will go to him disguised as a Brahmin and beg the amulet from him. But you, Brahma, have granted him the boon that he cannot die unless his wife's chastity is violated. I will take care of this as well. Then he will surely die. Later, when his wife leaves her body, she will become my dearest wife. Narayan then gave Lord Shiva his trident. Lord Brahma and the other demigods returned to their respective abodes. Later, to gain victory for the demigods, Lord Shiva pitched his big tent and camped on the banks of the Chandrabhaga River under a beautiful fig tree. He then sent Pushpadanta, the leader of the Gandharvas, as a messenger to Shankachuta. When Pushpadanta arrived at Shankachuta's capital, he noticed that it was more beautiful than Indra's realm and more opulent than Kuvera's. The city was 40 miles wide and 80 miles long. It was built of pearl and jewel crystals, and on all sides there were roadways. 7 inaccessible moats, one after another, surrounded the city. There were hundreds of shops full of trade articles and marketable commodities. Palatial buildings of traders and merchants were all over. Thousands and thousands of beautiful buildings, constructed with scarlet gems, inlaid with various ornaments, and decorated with fancy articles, gave the place a boundless charm. The Gandharva chief saw that Shankachuta's palace was spherical like the moon. 4 successive moats with fiery flames encircled it. On top of the palace were ramparts made of jewels that touched the sky. The palace was inaccessible to enemies, but offered no hindrance to friends. The 12 gates, decorated with lotuses, jeweled mirrors, paintings, and statues, were guarded by 12 gatekeepers. On all sides, the palace was protected by very powerful, graceful, well-dressed, and richly adorned demons who were holding heavenly weapons in their hands. When Pushpadanta approached the first gate, he saw that it was guarded by a man who had a hideous face, copper complexion, and tawny eyes, and who was smiling and holding a trident in his hand. Pushpadanta explained to him the purpose of his mission, that he was a war ambassador, and the guard allowed him to pass inside. The other gatekeepers did the same. At the last gate, he said to the guard, "O guard, quickly inform your king that a war is about to occur." The guard did so and, obtaining Shankachuda's permission, ushered the messenger inside. There, the Gandharva saw the well-formed, handsome demon seated in the center of the royal assembly on a golden throne. One attendant was holding a jeweled umbrella over the king's head, while other attendants were fanning him with white chamaras or whisks. Countless demons surrounded him, and armed guards walked here and there. Shankachuda was beautifully dressed in heavenly garments, covered with garlands, and anointed with fragrance. Seeing all this, Pushpadanta was thunderstruck and said to Shankachuda, "O king, I am a messenger of Lord Shiva, and my name is Pushpadanta. My lord has ordered me to tell you the following. The demigods have sought the protection of Lord Hari, so you had better restore to them their kingdoms and rights. Lord Hari has given his own trident to Lord Shiva, and asked him to wage war against you if necessary. Presently, Lord Shiva is residing under the shade of a fig tree on the bank of the Pushpabhadra River. Either you must return to the demigods their property, or you must be ready to fight with Lord Shiva. What shall I tell my lord is your reply?" You had better leave. I shall go to him in the morning." The messenger returned to Lord Shiva and conveyed the demon's message. In the meantime, the following group of persons appeared before Lord Shiva: Kartikeya, Nandi, Mahakala, Bana, Manibhadra, the 8 Bhairavas, the 11 Rudras, the 8 Vasus, the 12 Adityas, Indra, Agni, Chandra, Vishvakarma, the 2 Ashvini Kumaras, Kuvera, Yama, Jayanta, Nalakuvara, Vayu, Varuna, Buddha, Mangala, Dharma, Shani, Kama, Ugrachanda, Kotari, the 100-armed Bhadrakali, as well as many other personages. Bhadrakali was seated on an excellent chariot. Her paraphernalia, clothing, garland, and sandal paste were red. Inspiring her devotees with courage and infusing fear into the enemy, she began dancing, laughing, and singing. Her rolling tongue and the skull she held in her hand were each 8 miles in circumference. She carried a trident, an iron spear, conches, a wheel, mace, lotus, bow, arrows, dumbbells, a scimitar, thunder, the weapons of Vishnu and Varuna, a snake noose, the weapons of Agni, Narayan, Brahma, Gandharva, Garuda, Pashupati, a pestle, shield, staff, as well as other irresistible weapons. This fearsome goddess was accompanied by millions of devotee yoginis and dakinis, and also countless ghosts, goblins, and demons known as bhutas, pretas, pishachas, kushmandas, brahma rakshasas, and rakshasas, as well as yakshas and kinnaras. Then Kartikeya bowed down to his father Lord Shiva, who asked him to sit on his left side and help him. The army remained there in battle array. At the palace, the mighty Shankachuta went to the women's quarters and informed Tulsi about the imminent war. Hearing this, her palate, lips, and throat became dry. With a sorrowful heart she said to him,
"O my lord, my friend, my master, stay for a moment and sit within my heart. Fill me with life for a moment. Please satisfy my human desire. Let me gaze at you fully so that my eyes may be satisfied. My breathing is very agitated now, for at the end of night I had a very bad dream. Therefore, I feel a burning within myself."
The king finished his meal and, in truthful and beneficial words, said to Tulsi, "O my queen, when it is time to reap the results of one's past acts, one experiences good and evil, pleasure and pain, fear and sorrow. In time, trees grow, branches develop, flowers blossom, and fruits appear. In time, the fruitful tree decays. Similarly, in time, human beings grow and decline. In time, the Creator creates, the Preserver preserves, and the Destroyer destroys. This is the law of creation, preservation, and destruction. Therefore, you should always adore Lord Krishna, as he is the Lord of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. He is the Creator, Maintainer, and Destroyer. He has no beginning nor end, and he does not depend on material nature. Lord Krishna, by his own will, has manifested nature with its animate and inanimate objects. All things, from Lord Brahma down to a blade of grass, are artificial and temporary. In time they grow and decay. Thus it would be better for you to adore Radha's consort, Lord Krishna, who is distinct from the three modes of material nature, who is the supersoul within all and the Lord of all. Take shelter of Krishna, for it is by his command that the wind blows swiftly, the sun radiates heat, Indra pours rain, death visits human beings, fire burns, and the moon travels through the sky. Seek the Supreme Krishna, who is the death of death, the time of time, the creator of the creator, the preserver of the preserver, and the destroyer of the destroyer. Take refuge in him. My dearest, no one is a friend of anyone, but Lord Hari, Krishna, is the friend of all. Therefore, pray to him and serve him. My love, who am I, and who are you? By our karma, Providence has united us. Providence will also separate us. When danger comes, only fools are disturbed. The wise are never thus shaken. Like wheels, pleasure and pain always revolve. In Badarik Ashram, you absorbed yourself in austerities to obtain Lord Narayan as your husband. Surely you will get him. I myself practiced austerities to obtain you as my wife, and by Lord Brahma's grace, I have gotten you. Very soon you will get Govinda in Goloka Vrindavan, and when I leave my demoniac body, I too shall go there. In that realm we will regularly see one another. By Radha's curse, I was born in the precious land of India, but I will return to Goloka. Therefore, my dear, do not worry about me. You too will quit your human form and assume a spiritual form and go to Lord Hari, so you need not sorrow. Tulsi was thus consoled. Shankachuta spent the night with Tulsi in the Temple of Gems, which was lit by diamond lamps. They rested on a nicely decorated bed that was strewn with flowers and anointed with sandal paste. Then Tulsi, who had not eaten any food and thus looked thin, became overwhelmed with grief and began weeping. The king, who knew the truth about life, clasped her to his chest and again appeased her in various ways. The spiritual instructions he had received in Bandira forest from Lord Krishna, which were capable of destroying all sorrows and delusions, he now carefully conveyed to Tulsi. Upon receiving them, her joy knew no bounds, for she realized that everything in this world is temporary. She and her husband then spent the remainder of the night in loving exchanges. At Brahma Muhurta, or before sunrise, Shankachuta got up from his flower-strewn bed. He discarded his nightclothes, bathed in pure water, put on freshly washed clothing, and smeared his body and forehead with bright tilak markings. He performed his necessary rites and worshipped his personal deity. He then saw such auspicious things as curd, ghee, honey, parched rice, etc., and as usual distributed to the Brahmins the best jewels, pearls, clothing, and gold. To make his departure for war favorable, he gave to his guru some pearls, gems, and diamonds, and he gave to the poor some horses, elephants, and cows. He then gave to the Brahmins 1,000 storehouses, 3 lakhs or 300,000 towns, and 7 lakhs or 700,000 villages. He installed his son Suchandra as the acting king, and entrusted to him the care of his family, kingdom, treasury, subjects, wealth, storehouses, and conveyances. Shankachuta dressed himself for war and armed himself with bow and arrows. The king ordered the armies to gather, so 300,000 horses, 100,000 elephants, 10,000 chariots, 3 crores of archers, or 30 million, 3 crores of armed soldiers, and 3 crores of trident holders readied themselves for battle. After counting his forces, the king appointed a Maharatha, an expert in the science of warfare, as commander-in-chief over 3 lakh Akshohini forces, or 300,000. An Akshohini is a whole army consisting of 109,000 foot soldiers, 65,610 horses, 21,870 chariots, and 21,870 elephants. Ordering 3 Akshohinis to beat war drums, he remembered Lord Hari and emerged from the pavilion. Shankachuta rode on a fine chariot and, headed by his guru and his elders, left for Lord Shiva's place. Lord Shiva at that time was staying on the banks of the Pushpabhadra River at Siddhashram. This holy place was known to enable sadhus to easily attain perfection in yoga. It was here that Lord Kapila practiced asceticism, and thus devotees of Lord Kapila went there and did the same. The place was bounded on the west by the Western Sea, on the east by the Malya mountain range, on the south by the Sri Shaila mountain, and on the north by the Gandhamadana mountain. The Pushpabhadra River was 40 miles wide and 4,000 miles long. This auspicious river offered great spiritual merit and was always full of transparent, sparkling water. She is the favorite spouse of the Lavana or salt ocean and is indeed very sacred. This river issues from the Sarasvati in the Himalayas, and keeping the Gomati River on her left side, she eventually merges with the Western Ocean. When the demon arrived there, he saw Lord Shiva sitting in a yogic meditation posture at the root of a fig tree. Looking as bright as a million suns, Lord Shiva was smiling. He appeared as though the infinite light were radiating from every pore of his body. He was wearing a tiger skin and holding a trident and axe, and his head was covered with bright bunches of matted hair. He had 5 faces and 3 eyes in each, and there were sacred snakes coiled around his neck. He was the death of death, the destroyer of the world, and a powerful lord. His face was serene and beautiful. He immortalizes his devotees, awards the fruits of asceticism, and is a source of prosperity. He destroys the world and rescues sinners from hell. Upon seeing Lord Shiva, Shankachuta got down from his chariot and, with his entire army, bowed low to him. He also saluted Bhadrakali, who was on Lord Shiva's left side, and Kartikeya, who was in the front. In response, they bestowed blessings on him. Nandi and other devotees of Lord Shiva got up and greeted him in a suitable manner. Shankachuta spoke cordially to them and then sat down beside Lord Shiva, who greeted him cheerfully and said,
O king, Lord Brahma, the creator of the world and the father of religious duty, had a Vaishnava son named Marichi, who begat the virtuous Kashyapa. Daksha, another son of Lord Brahma, bowed to Kashyapa and gave him his 13 daughters in marriage. Of these daughters, Danu, who was very blessed and chaste, gave birth to 40 sons. They were all very spirited and known as Danavas. Amongst them, Viprachiti was prominent. He was most valorous, pious, and devoted to Lord Vishnu. His son's name was Damba, and he obtained Shukracharya as his guru. Following his teacher's advice, he worshipped Lord Krishna at Pushkar by reciting the Krishna mantra for 100,000 years. Consequently, by Lord Krishna's boon, he was able to get a son like yourself. In your former birth in Goloka, you were very religious and were the chief cowherd friend of Lord Krishna. By Radha's curse, you have become lord of the demons here. But you are also a Vaishnava. And a Vaishnava regards everything, from the form of Lord Brahma down to the form of a blade of grass, as very illusory. Even if the 4 kinds of liberation are offered to him, namely Salokya, Sarshti, Sayusha, and Samipya, namely to live on the same planet as Lord Vishnu, to have the same opulences as Lord Vishnu, to merge with Lord Vishnu, and to have equal association with Lord Vishnu, respectively, he does not care at all for them, for he is only interested in serving Lord Vishnu. Nor does he care to have the position of Indra, Kuvera, or Brahma, for he thinks them all insignificant. He only cares to worship and serve Lord Krishna. Now, you are a true Krishna devotee. Therefore, why do you care for those things that belong to the demigods and which are false to you? Better return to the demigods their kingdoms and please me by this act. Let the demigods be reinstated in their own positions, and you govern your own kingdom happily. You are all descendants of Kashyapa Muni, so it is not desirable for relatives to feud. In fact, the sin committed by killing a Brahmin is not even 1/16 as great as that of creating hostilities amongst one's relatives. O king, pause. If you think that by restoring to the demigods their kingdoms you will lose prestige, you should also consider that no one's position is stable or unchanging. When the world is completely dissolved, even Lord Brahma disappears. Then, by the will of God, he subsequently reappears. And later, by virtue of his knowledge, he again creates everything. But the type of knowledge, intellect, and memory that people receive depends on the amount of austerity they practiced in their previous births. Also consider this. Truth is the support of dharma or virtue. In the Satya Yuga, the golden or truthful age, virtue is complete. In the Treta Yuga or silver age, it is reduced by 1/4. In the Dwapara Yuga or copper age, by 1/2. And in the Kali Yuga or iron age or age of quarrel, by 3/4. And at the end of the Kali Yuga, virtue becomes reduced even more, like the moon on the dark moon night. Or consider the sun. In the summer, its light is very intense, but not so in the winter. At noon, the sun is very hot, but not so in the morning and evening. In time, the sun rises. In time, it becomes powerful, and in time it sets. By the working of time, it is obscured by clouds. Then consider the moon. When the moon is devoured by Rahu, as in a lunar eclipse, it trembles. When it is released, it becomes bright again. In the full moon night, it becomes full, but does not remain so. In the bright fortnight, it waxes daily, but in the dark fortnight, it wanes daily. In the bright fortnight, the moon looks healthy and rich, but in the dark fortnight, it looks decreasingly thinner, as if afflicted by consumption. Thus, at one time the moon looks powerful, and at another time it looks weak and pale. Similarly, Bali Maharaj is presently living in Patalaloka, one of the planets beneath the earth, but at another time he will become lord of the demigods. At one time the earth is lush with grains, and is the resting place of all beings, but at another time it becomes covered with water. The entire world, including everything moving and non-moving, appears at one time and disappears at another. Only Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, remains the same. It is by His grace that I obtained the name Mrityunjaya, or the Conqueror of Death. I have witnessed many dissolutions of the world, and I shall continue to witness them. Lord Krishna is both material nature and the Supreme Being. He is the individual soul as well as the Supreme Soul. Though He assumes many forms, He is beyond those forms. Whoever repeats His name and sings His glories can conquer death. He does not come under the influence of birth, death, disease, old age, and fear. Lord Krishna has created Brahma, the creator, Vishnu, the preserver, and me, the destroyer. By His will, we possess those potencies and influences. O King, I have delegated Kala, Agni, and Rudra to do the work of destruction, whereas I myself only repeat His name and sing His glories incessantly, day and night. For this reason I am called Mrityunjaya, and by my knowledge I have conquered death. I am fearless. When death sees me, he flies away, just as snakes flee when they see Garuda.
King Shankachuta thanked and praised Lord Shiva repeatedly, and replied modestly, "What you have said is quite true, but please allow me to say a few words. Kindly listen. You have just said that fighting with one's relatives is a great sin. Then why did the Lord, on behalf of the demigods, take away all of Bali Maharaj's possessions and send him down to Patala? And why did the Lord, for the same reason, kill Hiranyaksha, Hiranyakashipu, Shumba, and other Danavas? Long ago, the demons and the demigods worked hard together, churning the ocean to obtain nectar from it. But why did the Lord give the nectar to the demigods? O Lord, this universe is the sporting ground of Lord Krishna, and anyone he favors with fortune and glory obtains them. The quarreling between the demigods and the demons is eternal. Victory and defeat come to each party alternately. So it is improper and unnecessary for you to interfere in our quarrel. For you, O great Lord, are both my relative and my friend, and your nature is of the highest self. To you, the demigods and the demons are equal. So it is certainly shameful for you to become our opponent and favor the demigods. If you win this battle, the glory and fame you would gain would not be as great as if we win. And if we defeat you, the disgrace and infamy you would earn would be much greater than that which we would if we were defeated. For we are small and you are great. Lord Shiva smiled and gently said,
O king, you have descended from a Brahmin family, so if I am defeated by you, how shall I incur shame? In former days the Lord fought with Madhu and Kaitava, as well as Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha. And I fought with Tripur. And the Universal Mother, Durga Devi, fought with Shumba and other demons. But none of the demons just mentioned, who were killed in the war, can be compared to you in prowess. You are the best of Lord Krishna's attendants. The demigods have sought Lord Hari's protection, so he has sent me on their behalf to approach you. If I am defeated by a sublime person like yourself, how can I be disgraced? But I'm surprised to hear you talk of disgrace and infamy. There is no point in continuing this useless talk. Now, either return to the demigods their kingdoms, or prepare to fight with me. I am firm in my determination.
Shankachuta quickly got up, bowed down to Lord Shiva, and ascended his chariot with his ministers. Lord Shiva ordered his army to be ready immediately, and Shankachuta did the same. Musical instruments blared out, formally announcing the start of war. There was a great clamor along with the cries of the warriors. Then the fight between the demigods and the demons began, and both sides fought righteously. Indra fought with Vrishaparvan, Bhaskara, the sun god, with Viprachiti, Nishakara, the moon god, with Damba, the fire god with Gokarna, Kuvera with Kalakeya, and Vishvakarma with Maya. Mrityu, the death god, battled with Bhayamkara, Yama with Shambhara, Vayu with Bala, Varuna with Vikacha, Buddha with Dritaprishta, Shani with Raktaksha, Jayanta with Ratnasara, the Vasus with the groups of Varchasas, the two Ashvini Kumaras with the two Diptimans, Nalakuvara with Duma, and Dharma with Durandara. Mangala contended with Ganakaksha, Vaishvanara with Shobhakara, Manmatha with Pipita, the 12 sun gods with Gokamuka, Churna, Khadga, Dumra, Samhala, Vishva, and Palasha. The 11 Rudras fought with 11 terrible and powerful Asuras. Mahamani fought with Ugrachanda and others, and Nandishvar and the rest fought with the leading demons. Lord Shiva, the goddess Kali, and their son Kartikeya encamped at the root of the holy fig tree. King Shankachuta, adorned with gems and surrounded by millions of demons, sat down on a beautiful jeweled throne. Then a great battle ensued. Many mystical and supernatural weapons were hurled, and numerous demigods and demons were killed. Maces, long and short swords, different types of iron clubs, javelins, spears, axes, and other weapons glowed in the soldiers' hands. Fighting with these weapons, the jubilant warriors roared and cut off each other's heads. Elephants, horses, chariots, and foot soldiers, along with their drivers and passengers, were hit and torn apart. Arms, thighs, hands, hips, ears, and feet were cut off. Flags, arrows, swords, coats of mail, and beautiful ornaments were split apart. From the tussle, glowing heads with earrings, as well as elephant-like thighs, were strewn about the earth. Severed arms with their ornaments and weapons were scattered about like honeycombs. Warriors running on the battlefield saw several headless bodies that jumped and which were still holding their weapons. The warriors discharged so many arrows at each other that the sun became obscured, and it appeared as if the rainy season had arrived. Heroes roared like lions, blew conches loudly, and fought furiously. Though the combat was terrible and tumultuous, it was pleasurable to the fighters. Then the demigods were defeated. Many were wounded by weapons and missiles, and frightened, they fled the battlefield. The demigods returned to Lord Shiva and sought refuge in him. Disturbed, they cried out, "O Lord, please save us! Save us!" Lord Shiva, noting the demigods' defeat and hearing their fearful cries, became greatly enraged. Glancing at the demigods sympathetically, he assured them of his protection. He ordered his son, the great hero Kartikeya, to attack the enemy. Fighting courageously with the hosts of demons, Kartikeya shouted angrily and roared heroically, killing 100 Akshohinis in the battle. Then Kali, her eyes like a red lotus, chopped off their heads, drank their blood, and rapidly ate their flesh. She fought in many ways, frightening both the demigods and the demons. Wherever she went, she drank the Danava's blood. With one hand, she grabbed 10 million elephants and 10 million men and playfully shoved them into her mouth. Thousands of headless bodies appeared to be dancing on the battlefield. All the cowards were terrified by the overwhelming tumult. Kartikeya again became furious. Showering countless volleys of arrows, he struck thousands of demon leaders within a few seconds. Terrified, many of the Danavas fled, but those who stayed were slain. The demons Vrishaparvan, Viprachiti, Danda, and Vikampana fought with Kartikeya by turns, and all of them were wounded by his spear. Kali assisted Kartikeya, and together they won the battle. In the heavens, the celestials pounded their drums and showered down flowers. Shankachuta saw the appalling spectacle wrought by Kartikeya and Kali. It appeared as terrible as the final dissolution of the world. Furious, he prepared for battle. Accompanied by many heroes, he climbed into his diamond-studded airplane, which was equipped with weapons and missiles. This enlivened and encouraged his men, especially when Shankachuta, sitting in the middle of the plane, drew his bowstring to his ear and discharged volleys of arrows. The shafts were terrifying and could not be endured. They resembled a shower of rain and covered the battlefield with intense darkness, relieved only by occasional flashes of fire. At this, Nandishvar and the other demigods fled. However, Kartikeya stayed. Then the Danava king showered mountains, serpents, pythons, and trees so horrendously that they could not be resisted. Thus Kartikeya looked like the sun covered by thick sheets of frost. Shankachuta broke Kartikeya's car, cut to pieces his bow, chariot, and horses, and shattered his peacock carrier. Then he hurled his effulgent spear at Kartikeya's chest, and the force of the blow caused him to fall unconscious. Quickly regaining consciousness, Kartikeya mounted his sturdy, bejeweled chariot, took up his weapons and missiles, and fought awesomely. Using his mystic weapons, he furiously split the weapons that had been hurled at him, namely the serpents, mountains, trees, and rocks. Then he put out a fire with his water weapon, split apart the demon's bow and chariot, and killed his charioteer. Roaring and shouting repeatedly like a hero, he split Shankachuta's armor and crown, and then he hurled his blazing spear at the demon's chest. Shankachuta collapsed unconscious.